So I finally was able to get Perseverance on this build. Like I said, was the next mod I wanted to get. However, I lost some health because I got a helmet you just saw with Anomaly Power, Skill Leech, and Cooldown. It has Thunder's Legacy as its tier 3rd mod, which is a mod I was able to customize and so change, and it came with Perseverance. So that let me add a 14th mod now, get Perseverance essentially, and keep everything the same. However, I lost some health, but it's not the end of the world, because I will say this is a mostly health build. I mean, I'm mostly middle tree. I still have max health on 3 of my other pieces. And for good reason, because it's a pure cut. It's kind of trying to be as pure of a tank as I can. And I don't have any bleed. Like, my bleed damage is terrible, so I'm not going to be trying to heal or be a tank through that means. Which means I want more health than the freaking bleed gloves have. However, I'm learning, as you see, and as you'll see when I get to Moloch, and I tested this in Target Guitar too and others, and it's like, yeah. So I did more testing after this video too and other expeditions, and it's pretty much unchanged. Like, I'll take a slightly bigger hit occasionally, but the thing is, there is no fight in this whole game, including carrying people, that it's just, I can't tank it still. Because basically I lost about 16, maybe 17% of my previous health, so a good chunk, but also not an insane amount. In its place, though, I gained some Anomaly Power, which, to be fair, is pretty pathetic when I looked at the extra damage I was getting on Boulder Dash and stuff and my melee. However, it was noticeable, and basically, and now in my view, I don't think it's really helping me clear a lot faster. Like, my damage is not a huge amount more either, but it helps my damage a little bit in exchange for the health loss, but more importantly, it helps my skill leech healing off it a little bit more. So, like, I took a health nerf, but I gained a skill leech buff. Since thankfully the helmet still has skill leech on it, as my other helmet. And with the Anomaly Power buff, that means my Boulder Dash, my melee, I think also Reflect Bullets maybe, is healing me a little bit more too, because they're all doing a little bit more damage. So, as I've said in previous videos, one of the key things to making a super tank is, like, having that perfect balance where you're able to tank any situation in the game. Which means you want to have everything. You want health. You don't want your health to be too low, because then, when you take one of the big hits, you don't have enough base health to last if you take, even if it's not a 1 tap, if it's like a 2 tap, if they hit you with something that takes like half your health bar and you're getting swarmed in the meantime too, even if you have a lot of armor and a lot of resistance and a lot of skill leech healing, you still might not be able to recover before you die, because your health, your max health is just too low. So you still want a lot of health, but you also want a lot of resistance for the anomaly hits. You want a lot of armor for the freaking riflemen and the melee dudes. You want a lot of leech healing. I will say this, you should not care one bit about your class healing. Because your class, unless you're a techno, but technos don't really have that. All they have is just even more skill leech and weapon leech healing, which is why they're the best for healing, frankly, in the game. They're the best at surviving from healing in the game, because they just have an insane amount of extra healing too, and don't need to care about class heals. But heals from kills, yeah, they don't mean anything, especially at tier 40, because they nerfed that for some reason. I don't know why they nerf healing received when it's one of the worst stats already that virtually no one relies on for staying alive. Well, the people who relied on it the most were the Pyros before World Slayer, and were like the glass cannon builds, and they needed to kill people to stay alive. But yeah, it's pretty pointless. So the most important thing is leech healing, so that you don't rely on killing anyone. You just have to shoot and do damage to heal yourself is all you got to do with leech healing. But also having the perfect balance of that, your max health affects the maximum threshold that you can heal from it. That's why being a pure glass cannon you think would heal you a ton. And it will heal you a lot, but not as much as you think it does, because your max health does play a role in it. That's why in my other videos, as I pointed out, my Techno max health build is probably the tankiest dude that's ever existed when it comes to healing, at least. Because he heals in insane amounts, since he has just enough damage from his turrets and just enough skill leech healing and damage on his gun, combined with a gigantic health bar too, where he has like I think 750k health. All that combines to where his threshold is as high as it can be for healing. And so that means he's able to heal every lick of every damage he does. You know, based off the percentages is what I mean. It's, you know, it's all math. It's just a whole math game. But long story short is all of it comes into play though. It's not just about having maximum damage with maximum leech on yourself for staying alive from everything in this game. I will say that's the best thing for the Arbiters, but that's well, at least with the Dark Armaments ability they do, because the Dark Armaments ability they do, as I've gone into in insane depth, is a bullcrap ability. It ignores your armor, it ignores your resistance, it ignores your health, it ignores Golem, it ignores Reflect, it ignores everything. So the only thing that keeps you alive during that insanity is your leech healing. But anyway, I got off on a huge tangent. The point is that this helmet wasn't really the worst I could have gotten. I still think I'd prefer max health whenever I get it, but I can tell it's not really any worse than it already was. And in exchange, I now have Perseverance, which is nice. So now I finally have a big buff on Golem's duration. Now I think the last mod I want to get is Golem Squad. I was debating between Plate Dodge, because you know I need more more armor is more damage. The thing is, Plate Dodge is not as much as Boulder Dash gives me, and it would require me constantly dodging, like constantly dodging in a fight, in addition to constantly Boulder Dashing, to the point where it's like, will my damage be much better? Because sure, I'm getting a decent amount more damage off Overwhelming Force and my melee strikes by increasing my armor. However, I'm also doing virtually no damage with my gun at all, like any of the mods on my gun at all, because I'm just not shooting as much, because I'm not shooting at all at that point, because I'm just dodging, boulder dashing, meleeing, dodging, boulder dashing, meleeing. So it's like, and then you could say I'm like losing out on some of the leech healing, the weapon leech healing at that point that also keeps me alive too. But I think Golem Squad's better, because Golem Squad kind of helps everything. It further will increase Golem's duration, so that increases Rockfall's overall damage, as well as increasing Overwhelming Force's duration. So in a sense, it's already helping Overwhelming Force just by making it last longer. And most importantly, it finally gives me it's just a huge buff to the team. Because since my Golem will be maxed on both its cooldown and its duration, slapping Golem Squad on will essentially let me put Golem on both my teammates for literally like half the expedition, because I already have Golem on more than half the time. That'll put Golem on my teammates like half the time, and you know Golem is a gigantic defense buff for them. So I feel like Golem Squad's the way to go, because I'm already the super tank. Now I can buff my damage dealing players with me, since I know they're usually more frail, since hardly anyone does tank builds.